Hey guys, and welcome back to and now for something a little bit different, episode 62. Today, guys, we got a special treat for you. This is going to be my second double feature that I've done, where I'm pairing two films, both with a post-apocalyptic uh, fantasy theme. And of course, I'm sticking with my animated month. So, with that said, I figured who better to bring in than the kings of the drive-in themselves. We got Rob and Joe from Caliber 9 from outer space. Gentlemen, welcome. It's good to see your faces again. Welcome
Hey,
back.
John. Good to see you.
Yeah, good to be
Yeah, me
back. Thanks,
too.
John.
Yeah, absolutely, guys. I figured you guys have got the market down when it comes to that drive-in double feature mode. You got your A and your B movie over at Caliber 9
Yeah.
from outer space. So I gotta bring the experts in. And I figure because I'm celebrating animation month here, I go with the theme of two, like I said, post-apocalyptic films. I'm going to bring you Wizards from 1977, and then we're also going to be talking about the anime film from 1990, A Wind Named Amnesia. So those should be some fun discussions. We get into that, I figure I would ask everybody what they've been watching. I didn't get a lot in this week, but I got a couple things in, one in particular, which I'll talk about. How about Joe? You want to go first and tell us what you watched?
Yeah, well, I misunderstood the instructions for this this video. So I watched three films.
I know
I
that
wa
was my fault. I should have clarified that.
I watched Felidae, which is a German animation about cats, which I really loved actually. I thought it was
Oh,
fantastic.
nice.
And it's also got
Yeah.
Mario Adorf doing one of the voices, one of the main voices in it. And is it Carl Maria Brandauer, the guy that plays Domino in Never Say Never Again?
Nice.
I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
really worth watching.
Oh, nice, nice. Yeah, I covered that on the show last week. I had a gentleman, Dave Gray from Raiders of Podcast, and we talked about the English class primarily because I fuck up any language that isn't English, and then sometimes I fuck up the English language. But I'm glad you enjoyed it. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
and I saw it
definitely
had a physical release as well. I just watched it on streaming, but yeah, I saw it was out there, so that's good.
yeah, no, yeah, no, it's a good one. They really did a really nice restoration on that particular film. So definitely check it out for sure. I'm glad you positive things to say about it. And
Yeah.
I didn't get too much in, and I didn't write anything down because initially we were going to skip this. I saw the new Bong Joon. Oh man, talk about butchering films. Our Korean friend, Bong Joon Hoon. I'm gonna say
Bong
Mickey.
Joon Bong Joon Ho.
Sorry.
Is that his name?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
See, Rob has got our back here to make sure I'm gonna be doing a lot of mispronouncing, especially when I get to a Wind Named Amnesia.
Unsuitable
That's
Korean
all Japanese names.
pronunciation. Bong Joon-ho with an Australian accent. That's it.
But hey, but you got it better than I did. You know what I mean? I fucking butchered the thing. But it's basically a comedy at its core. If you watch the trailer, you can see that it's basically the Earth has gone to shit, and our titular character Mickey, played by Robert Pattinson, wants to pretty much do anything to get off Earth. So he volunteers to be a part of this program where they basically do science experiments on him, and he basically dies every time. And
Mhm.
that's the general premise. Or all the further science, they're heading to another planet to eventually move in and take over. And you're basically watching Pattinson just get tortured and killed throughout the movie over and over, like almost something out of like a Marx Brothers film or a Three Stooges, episode. There's also some social satire because you have like this ridiculous buffoon of a president played by Mark Ruffalo. Of
Mm.
course, with today going on and everything going on in the news and politics, the first thing I think of is like, of course, our idiot leader over here, Mr. Trump. But yeah, it's a pretty good political satire. It's got that, and of course, it's got some good sci-fi, and it's one worth checking out. But this guy really hasn't really done wrong by me by any of his films. I
Yeah.
think the last thing I saw was that Netflix film that he did. Was it Oksha? I don't know. Hopefully, I didn't pronounce that one
Yeah,
wrong.
I haven't seen that
Yeah.
one. So,
I haven't seen that. No.
Yeah, it's also more of a comedy. which I notice he tends to throw in some comedy, even if in his more serious films.
Yeah.
Both of these films, I would say the only minor critique that I would make is they both could have shaved about 15 minutes off the runtime, and it probably would have been a little bit of a tighter film.
Yeah.
But if you like satires and you like goofy humor and you like Pattinson or even Mark Ruffalo, you really can't go wrong. It's a good time at the theater, and it's definitely worth checking out. So,
The
other than
setup,
that,
yeah, the setup reminds me of, is it Moon with Sam Rockwell?
Yeah, yeah, which is a good film. I
yeah.
like.
Yeah, because
Oh,
that's
that's a
that's about
brilliant film.
clones and two of them end up surviving at the same time. Is that right?
Yeah, no, and that's another one that's just a really brilliant film. What Duncan something I want to say his name was
Duncan
director.
Jones, David Bowie's son.
Oh, okay. Now that I did not realize because the last name, but that makes sense. Okay, I can
Yeah,
see
was he
that.
not originally Zowie Bowie? Was that not his name?
Is it Zoe Bowie or Zoe Bowie? I don't know. Put up at
Oh, I
two.
don't know.
I don't know. That's a
Zowie
good
Bowie. Zowie Bowie. I don't know. Anyway,
question.
Duncan
So
Johnson.
yeah, so I didn't really beyond that. I didn't catch too much, mainly because I didn't really write anything down. I caught some other things here and there, but things that I might possibly do for the show, so I don't want to talk about it. But yeah, that other than that, that's it. Now Rob, did you have anything, or did you say
There is
you?
actually one thing. I don't know if you've seen this yet or not, Joe. It was the Joe Fest at home watches that we've set up. I caught
I
up.
haven't seen any of them yet. No.
This will be my chance to say another Korean word really well. It was
Great.
called Gonjam Haunted Asylum. Actually, only one of those words was Korean. So
Gone
Oh,
Jam
okay.
Haunted Asylum. Okay, cool.
yeah, it's
Nice.
like it's a found footage horror film about it's quite a hackneyed concept, really. It's like a horror website where they're like paranormal investigators and they go to the spookiest places in the world. And so they go into this closed down like asylum in Korea somewhere.
Oh,
Um,
nice.
it's pretty good actually. It's
All
quite
right, cool.
well. I do like a good found footage horror film when they do it well. Even if
Yeah.
it is very hackneyed,
Yeah, no, absolutely.
it's fine.
No, definitely.
Yeah,
Very cool. And that was
that's
at
the
Joe Fest. You guys saw that?
Sorry, John, what was that?
Nice. That was at Joe Fest. That was part of the Joe Fest films.
We ran out of time, so there were some films we said we'd try to watch at home on the same night, kind of thing. So, um,
Ah,
that one on the weekends.
that's
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 good.
awesome that they give you that option, man. That's very cool.
Yeah. But I need to catch up on them. There's been a couple so far.
Yeah, and over here, I know that with a lot of the film festivals, they were when COVID was at its worst, they were just doing everything like via like you could just log on and do it digitally. Like Sundance did it one year, I think, and a couple
Yeah.
of the other bigger film festivals as well. So
We did it during COVID as well, and watched some good stuff and tried to get it all at the same time as well.
yeah, no, it gives you the option of seeing some of these films like around here they just won't play. That's just the reality. So
True.
because of the market, unfortunately. All right,
Jung Bum
so
Shik. How's that?
what's that?
Jung Bum Shik. That's Korean. I'm not just
Uh,
I'm not just coming out
well,
with weird words. The
I might,
director.
I'll make you our official translator, Rob. That's it. You've been promoted.
Yeah, totally win.
So I figure we'll start with our first film of Wizards from 1977. So this one's by a gentleman, Ralph Boschke, originally from Palestine, born in Palestine, and then moved to New York City around World War II time to escape all the bad stuff going on there and the persecution. And he's been kind of one of these interesting filmmakers that's always really kind of like bucked the system. He's always kind of tried to do things on his terms.
Yeah.
And I think he's kind of an interesting filmmaker. I'm just curious between the two of you guys how familiar you are with some of his films and which ones you've seen before and that kind of stuff. Have you
I
seen
was
a lot
looking
of his?
through it, and I don't know if I think I've seen Lord of the Rings when I was a kid. Um,
Okay.
Definitely saw that one. Fritz the
Mm,
Cat was one that was in all video stores back in the mid
yeah.
80s because it was a rude cartoon about a cat.
Yeah.
I don't think I
Yeah.
ever saw it. Did he do any of Heavy Metal? I'm not
I've
sure.
never seen heavy metal. I'm embarrassed that I haven't. But
Very closely related to the stuff he does.
Yeah.
Maybe some of the animators, some of his team. Like I don't know if he worked on heavy metal at all.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Apart from that, I don't think I have seen any of Ralph Bakshi, which I'm surprised of. I thought I'd seen a few of his.
yeah. And what about you, Rob? How familiar are you with his filmography stuff?
I'm pretty familiar. I haven't seen Fritz the Cat, as you say. I can remember in the video store, it was amazing to me as a kid that in the porno section, which I wasn't supposed to be looking at, there was a cartoon.
Yeah.
So it's about that. I've never seen
Yeah,
it. But
yeah,
Lord of the Rings was quite a big one for me when I was a kid. I watched
Yeah.
that
yeah.
a lot, even though I was kind of dissatisfied in it as an adaptation of the book. Although I heard of that movie before I heard of the book. Went and read the book, so I watched that
Mm.
movie. So it does have a very cool Balrog in it. Um, and what's the other one? Fire and Ice is another one that
Oh, okay.
it's got the really cool Frank Frazetta poster. Might be one of my
Hmm.
movie posters of all time, actually. Fire and Ice, it's incredible. And Wizards is one that I rented on VHS actually when I was a kid, once or twice.
Yeah.
Um, no, once because I didn't really like it when I was a kid, but
Mm.
I have a better opinion of it now. It's weird, Bakshi. As you say, he's such an indie. He's got his own views on things. I think he was quite anti-Disney, and he wanted to be an
Yeah.
alternative to Disney. But he made films that were, I think, Wizards was supposed to appeal to like a family audience. It's
Yeah, he
just
tried to
Yeah.
clean it up, I think. Yeah. And he wanted it to be a PG or whatever.
yeah, and it's still got stuff in it that you think, Ralph, I don't know if that's really, really appropriate.
Yeah. Well, as we get into the discussion later on, there's some stuff. If I had seen this when I was like a kid, I would have been like, no, I'm not saying I would have been traumatized, but my mind would have been like blown. You know what I mean?
Oh
Some of the
yeah,
stuff, some of the images and stuff for sure.
yeah,
Mhm. Yeah, and like yourself, I think I came into them through Lord of the Rings because I the first novel I've ever read, fantasy novel, was The Hobbit, and I fell in love with that. So of course, saw The Hobbit animated by Rankin and Bass. Then I saw the Lord of the Rings and like, hold on, I guess Rankin and Bass didn't make this, but then they
yeah.
did make Return of the King, which I did see.
Oh,
And then I think saw Cool World in '92. I remember seeing that one and being like, wow, that's kind of crazy, like Brad Pitt, what's
I
going
never
on
saw
here?
that one. Yeah.
oh,
Yeah,
well, yeah. That's speaking of Bowie. That's got the Bowie song and everything. I've heard that's really bad, but I used to really like
it's
the song.
all over the place.
Uh,
It's worth a watch, but it's definitely all over the place for sure. But I think that was the last mainstream release he had, maybe.
Mm.
Yeah. So
yeah,
yeah, okay. Well, I know you guys we're on a tight time frame, so I'm going to get into it. I'll start with the tagline. Basically, on a post-apocalyptic Earth, a wizard and his fairy folk comrades fight an evil wizard who's using technology in his bid for conquest. Like I said, we have our director, Mr. Ralph Bosky. Ralph, like I said, is known for a lot of the stuff we just talked about. Believe it or not, he started off doing television stuff like in the 60s, where he worked for the Spider-Man TV series. He was I guess they call it a cell polisher.
Right.
And then, of course, he did American Pop, like I said, Cool World, Wizards. He did a movie called Coonskin, which I hear is quite controversial. I've not
Heard
seen.
about that one.
Uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
and then Heavy Traffic. He's known for using a lot of the rotoscope animation with
Mhm.
traditional animation. He's known for combining the two. Um, some
So I
interesting
was
things
looking
about
this
this.
up. Rotoscope, is
Yeah,
that when you basically just trace over real actors and use that
yeah,
instead?
I believe that's a rough estimation. I don't know. I'm pretty sure that's the general idea. Yeah, of
Okay.
rotoscope. It was definitely an interesting feel
Hmm.
for the film in certain scenes. Um, So yeah, this movie was made for $2 million, and it actually did make a little bit of a profit. It made $9 million in the box office. Now, talking about your anti-Disney views, this is interesting. So two things. One, basically, he ran out of money, and the producers basically told him if he wants to finish up the movie, he has to use his own movie. So he had to pull out $50,000 of his own money.
Hmm.
So I thought that was interesting. And of course, he wasn't happy about it because he was only getting paid $100,000 for the film. And apparently, to your Disney point, Disney had just re-released Fantasia at the same time this was being released, and apparently they released it in all the same theaters that this was being released. Kind of,
Oh, yeah.
according to him, he thought it was kind of like a jab at him, you know what I
Oh,
mean?
Yeah.
Because
it could
they
be
didn't
for
want they
sure.
didn't want any competition.
Disney then weren't like they are now. Like they would have seen him as legitimate competition. Like you can't imagine
Yeah,
Disney now caring. You know, for someone a small indie upstart, someone making a film for $2 million, they wouldn't be worried. But yeah, back in
Nowadays, Disney would own him.
they just
yeah.
buy it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're like, fuck this guy. How dare these guys step on my lawn? You know what I mean? And then one more quick piece of trivia because I also thought this was interesting. So originally, the title for this film was going to be called Wizard Wars, and George Lucas, our buddy George, was just getting ready to gear up to release Star Wars, and he approached Ralph and he's like, "Listen, Ralph, we can't have two sci-fi fantasy epics with wars in them. Can you do me a favor, buddy, and can you change your title of your film?" So because of that, he thought about it, and at first he was kind of like, "Well, fuck George," but then he's like, "You know what? He does have a good point. It's not going to hurt anything," and that's how the name ended up with Wizards instead of Wizard Wars. So
Yeah.
just a couple little pieces of tidbit when it
The
comes to
other
our
thing I
trivia.
saw is Mark Hamill is in this as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to talk about. Yeah, he has a part. And at first, I didn't catch it on my first viewing because this is my first time watching. I watched it last week, and then I watched it yesterday real quick. Um, when we get to our music, we have a guy named Andrew Belling. Now, Andrew Belling is known for composing the scores to stuff like The Ed Sullivan Show. He did an animated film that came out in the 80s, which I've never seen, but I've always been curious about, called Star Chaser, The Legend of Orin. It came out in 85. He did Dracula's Dog, which came out in '77.
That's a great film. Sorry, Star Chaser is awesome.
No,
Oh, is it? It's cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, no. Feel free to chime in at any time, guys. At all. I'm always curious about your input, and that the name alone kind of intrigued me. Alone, I was like, I got to seek that one out. When we get to our editing, we have a guy named Donald W. Ernst. He worked a lot with our man here. He did stuff like Heavy Traffic, his second film in '73. He did Coonskin in '74. He did The Lord of the Rings in '78. And again, Star Chaser, The Legend of Orin in '85. So that's a little bit about our editing department. We have 38 animators working on this film. And don't worry, I'm not going to go into every animator's resume here, but I do think it's worth noting. That's a pretty relatively small amount when you consider like today's productions where they're sometimes you have 200-300 people working on a film. When we get into our cast, we have our good wizard, I'll call him, Avatar, and that's played by the actor Bob Holt. Bob's done a lot of stuff, anywhere from like the Pink Panther TV series from '69 to '78. He's appeared in Bed Knobs and Broomsticks that came out in '71. One of my childhood favorites, Charlotte's Web, which came out in '73, the animated.
Oh, yeah.
He's
That's a good
done.
one.
Oh, absolutely. Love it. Hong Kong Phooey from '74 to '75, Super Friends, and the list goes on and on. Playing the fairy princess, we have an actress named Jessie Wells. No, Jessie Wells. She plays Eleanor, and she was also in a bunch of different television stuff. Like she appeared in like Family Ties, T.J. Hooker. She also appeared in Return of Count Yorga from '71.
Hmm.
And she also appeared in another film by Basky called Hey Good Looking in '82. Um, moving on, we have Richard Roman, who's playing Weehawk. Weehawk is the elf warrior, and he's been in stuff like Mean Streets in '73,
I
Heavy
remember him.
Metal
He's
in '80.
he's the smart guy in Mean Streets that's got the tie with the big.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. He's been in Point of No Return, Protocol in '84, and another one of these day players that's been in a bunch of stuff. Like you pointed out, you hear the voice and you're like, hey, that sounds familiar, you know?
Yeah.
Zoe and Joe, he
Next
was in the ghastly ones.
The what? Sorry, Rob.
The ghastly ones.
Oh, was he in the Ghastly
Ah,
ones?
nice.
That's
Nice.
right. I remember mentioning him on one of the podcasts. Gosh.
Very, very cool.
Yeah.
We had David Proval playing Peace, or the assassin robot, which I thought he was a cool character. Um, Now this guy has a pretty interesting career because he's done stuff like the Boston Strangler in '68, again Mean Streets in '73. Talk about Mean Streets. He did work with Basky again in Hey Good Looking in '82. And then he's done stuff like UHF with Weird Al in '89, and
Oh wow,
The
I used to love
Shark.
that film as a kid.
Oh my God, I still love that film. And I'm an adult. I love that film. It's wonderful.
Yeah,
Conan the Librarian,
yeah, yeah.
and
And it's got
you got
Kramer in
what's
it.
his name?
Yeah,
Yes, I was just about to say
um,
Kramer's in there.
yeah,
Dudley
Richard.
Spadowski.
Yeah.
Yep. Uh, Playing our lead bad guy, we have Steve Gravers playing Black Wolf, the deformed wizard, trying to use his technology to take over the world. He's been in a lot of television stuff like Rawhide, 40 Pounds of Trouble in '62. I just remember the show Bonanza or I
Yeah.
Spy, um, Get Smart, Columbo, Kojak, Charlie's Angels. A bunch of television.
Yep.
Next up, we have Mark Hamill. Now here we go, good old Mark playing the role of Sean the Fairy. And he's been, of course, I'm not going to even go over Mark Hamill's resume. We all know Mark Hamill. Everything.
He was recommended to Ralph Bakshi by George Lucas, I think, for some reason. But it's a very small role. He's barely in it.
Yeah, it gets
Yeah, no,
shot after 30 seconds.
Yeah.
yeah, no, it's a blink and you miss it kind of thing. Actually, when I was going through Internet Movie Database and looking at the cast, and I saw that he was in it, I honestly didn't recognize him at all. And then when I
Hmm.
on my second viewing, I'm like, oh, okay, that's Mark Hamill's voice. But I didn't even catch it the first viewing. Um, Now, rounding up our main cast, we have, and this one was interesting. We have in an uncredited role, we have the actress Susan Tyrrell. What's interesting about this is apparently she took the role because she was desperate for money, and but she didn't want to ruin her career because she thought it would be kind of beneath her to do a role like this, and
Oh,
people might not look at her the same way in Hollywood, which is why
Mhm.
she took an uncredited role. Now, the interesting part is years later, she met Ralph Bakshi and she said, you know what? Because of that narration in this film, it led to a lot of other roles. So it ended up helping her career. She's like, I wish I would have just taken the credit in the film.
yeah.
Um,
She did a lot of roles in the 80s that are probably she arguably less reputable than doing this, I would say. Like,
True,
yeah,
true, but she's
no,
still great.
I mean,
Creature, Maker, Nightmare Maker.
brilliant in
Great
this.
film.
She's more than, and she's the narrator, and she does some other roles. I think she does at least two other roles in the film too. She's
All
quite good.
right, cool. Yeah.
yeah. And then she pops up in Fire and Ice with Bakshi again a couple years later.
Yep.
And then she pops up in one of my favorite John Waters movies, Crybaby. I love Crybaby and
Oh, is
stuff
she?
like that. Yeah, she's in there, and she's also in Fat City, and
Right.
can't forget the good old genre film Angel. She shows up in Angel as well, and the
Yes.
sequel.
I hear good things
Yeah,
about.
yeah, no, they're fun. They're fun movies. Good times. Okay, so now I'll get into the script. Get into a little bigger, go into it a little further. And again, guys, feel free at any time chime in with anything you have to add or anything interesting. Basically, Earth has been devastated by a nuclear war. The humans who survived the apocalypse have been turned into mutants. Meanwhile, trolls, fairies, elves, and dwarfs emerge and live in the land of Montagar. Um, for 3,000 years, the people of Montagar celebrate peace. The Queen Delia gives birth, hold on one second, guys, to two twin wizards, Avatar the kind hearted and Black Wolf the scarred and mutated. Um, Now, Delia dies, unfortunately, and Black Wolf, feeling that he's been neglected and because he's hideously deformed, tries to take that opportunity. At this point, they're like teenagers. He tries to take that opportunity to kind of take over as a leader, but he's defeated by Avatar, vowing to seek his vengeance and move the planet to a place where mutants rule, essentially. From this point, many years go by, and Black Wolf leads a bunch of people like him, mutants, and he rules a land of Scorch, where he and his mutants salvage, restore old weapons, and they basically are trying to take back and take over the world using old technology from once upon a time. He finds an old projector with reels of Nazi propaganda of Hitler giving his famous hate speeches and Nazi propaganda. He uses that to inspire a band of mutants. So I think this is
Yeah,
kind of an interesting point
because as
because this is
mutants,
this is where
they're kind of lazy as mutants, and they don't really want to be out killing people.
They get bored in the middle
no
of that
no
Yeah.
think of
yeah, absolutely. You see the one guy. I think that's interesting. I'm sure you guys. I laugh my ass off. You see the one guy he's guarding with his fellow guard mate, and he he accidentally shoots him, and then he takes credit for it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Little stupid moments like that, like that are funny, and I think stuff like that's important because you're really getting a sense of the director and the director's sensibilities, and also you're getting a taste of his sense of humor is being
Mm.
injected into this sci-fi epic. Um, so meanwhile, Montagar, we see Avatar. Many years have gone by, and he's training the president's daughter, who we're introduced to. She's a fairy called Eleanor, to become a full-fledged fairy.
He doesn't wear a lot of clothes.
Suddenly, no, no, for a guy that wants to make a PG film, you could definitely see that Bosky, I feel like, was bringing some of his R-rated films
Yeah.
sensibilities into this film, right? When you think about like the violence, and you think
Yeah.
about like this fairy who's practically, for all intents and purposes, as naked as you can get, with still getting, I guess, a PG rating. Um, so yeah,
you
so,
probably
so
wouldn't
you
get a
definitely.
PG days for that somehow. I think
What's that?
you probably wouldn't get a
What was
PG
that?
rating days for that.
No. No.
Yeah, no, no. I'm just curious. I'd have to Google it later on because I'm using my phone, so I can't Google it on my phone. But I don't know if the PG-13 rating came into existence until I don't know if it came into existence until like the early '80s. I'm not 100%
Yeah, no,
sure, but I
there's a
have.
response to it came about because of Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom.
Right.
Must be that part where he rips the heart out of the guy.
Yeah, there was such an outcry about that being PG from, I don't know, concerned parent groups or something, that they introduced a PG-13 so that
Okay,
so that
that makes sense.
thing.
I thought it happened at some point in the '80s. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So,
So what was
so
that?
basically,
85 or something, 84? I can't remember when that came out.
what, Doom? I think so. Yeah, that one I remember seeing in the theater, and I remember just thinking this is awesome. He just ripped some guy's heart out of his chest, and
Yeah.
now they're eating monkey brains. you know. Um, so yeah, Avatar's training the president's daughter Eleanor to become a full-fledged fairy. Suddenly, her father, the president, is killed by. We're introduced to this character Necron 99, who's this robot assassin. He's all decked out in red, and unfortunately, the president dies. They find out about this plot of Black Wolf, basically wanting to use this technology to take over the entire world. So Avatar manages to kind of reprogram the robot, and he changes his name from Necro 99 to Peace. Hold on one second, guys. Um, Along with Eleanor, Avatar, we're introduced to a elf warrior named Weehawk, and they go on this mission to try to find Black Wolf and stop him from taking over the world. And we're soon enter a forest, and they're confronted by a fairy, another fairy, and this one is the one we talked about. We talked about Mark Hamill in his brief appearance.
Hmm.
The fairy kills an assassin kills Sean the fairy, and the fairies mistakenly think it's our good guys, and they kidnap Eleanor in revenge.
So that's what I got slightly confused at that point, right? Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah, the second watch to get that too, because I'm like, what's going on here at that point?
We
And
should
then
say,
at this
can we
point,
just say that the narrative in this film is it's a little bit all over the place, and characters kind of come and go, like take over a
yeah,
scene, maybe never turn up again later. It's all a bit muddled, which I think is why when I was a kid and I watched this, I didn't really like it. Whereas now I'm all in for that sort of nonsense. So
yeah, no, it definitely, and I hadn't even seen it as a kid, but definitely my first viewing, I definitely enjoyed it. But you're right, it definitely does kind of wander, and you do have to make sure, even though it's this crazy, wacky film with all these laughs thrown in the midst of all this violence, you do kind of have to kind of focus because if you blink your eye and miss something for a second, you're like, hold on a second, we just got
Yeah.
introduced to a character, and now this character disappeared off the face of the earth, and we're not seeing
Yeah,
him again. You know,
there's some major plot developments that happen with very little fanfare, and then just happens and go on, and it moves on, and you're like, hang on, what just happened there? Yeah.
Yeah.
and,
It
and,
feels like
and I
like you
have.
understand how Lord of the Ring works. It's that kind of stuff, so you don't have to worry too much about the niceties.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if that's just the way Bosky's mind thinks, or if it had something to do also with the diminishing budget. You know, I think it
Yeah.
might be a combination of the two.
And animation as well, because I was sort of thinking it looks, you watch this film and it feels a bit like a film that's been kind of hacked apart a bit and had a lot of deleted scenes,
Yeah.
but it's probably not the case because each scene takes forever to make. It's not like
Yeah.
they're just shooting scenes and taking them out. So I think the pacing can be off sometimes, I think, in animated films, and I just don't think Bakshi
Yeah.
ever cared that much for that sort of thing. And if anything, he liked being quirky and different and un-Disney. So it just, I think it's that important to him.
Yeah, I think in the interview I saw with him on, because I have the Blu-ray, he talked specifically like part of the reason that he used the different animation styles, for example, was budget. But then also part of he said to convey different emotions in different scenes, and he said it actually kind of the budget limitations ended in a way ended up being a strength for the film, in his opinion, because it managed to convey different. He didn't believe the idea of having to have the same animation style throughout the entire film. He thought it'd be
Yeah.
interesting to convey different feelings, different emotions through different animation style. And I have to give him credit. I do think it's an interesting take
That's
on
what
the
I love
filmmaking.
time around. I love all the different types of techniques that he's and how like stuff like charcoal drawings that aren't animated at all, and
Yeah, which are
Yeah.
much more melancholy at these points. So yeah, it does definitely work like that.
yeah,
Yeah, no, I think it's surprising that sometimes they call it happy surprises, and I think sometimes a lack of money, can be your best friend, believe it or not.
yep.
I know Robert Rodriguez used to say the money hose. He says once you pull that out, you start getting lazy, and I think there's something to be said about that.
Mhm.
All right. So basically, yeah, this guy gets killed, and Avatar and our elf warrior Weehawk are blamed for it. So in retaliation, these fairies kidnap Eleanor. So Avatar and Weehawk go searching for Eleanor. And hold on one second. And basically, they get separated. Avatar manages to find Eleanor, and he basically, sympathizes with the king. He's like, "Hey, listen, we didn't kill your man Sean here. That wasn't us." Um, he manages to convince him, and at this point, he's reunited with Eleanor and Weehawk, and they're transported to the mountains. Um, when they get out of the mountains, they encounter another group of elf warriors, and they seem to be aligned. They're also tired of Black Wolf's crap and his basically his him wanting to take over. The warriors recognize Avatar, and they kind of band together to try to go fight Black Hawk. Um, Unfortunately, Black Wolf or Black I kind of like call him Black Hawk. Black Wolf does a sneak attack that night, and he basically attacks them first. Um, and they manage to survive, but obviously they take some hits. And you see these really epic fight scenes. This is where it gets cool because this is where you get some really cool use of the rotoscope animation and the battles and stuff. I was really impressed by that stuff, like the battles, the way they came out. Because again, going back to the budget thing, I think the way he did these things, you could definitely see this film being a much more expensive film, but I think it was so effective in the way they did everything. So they managed to survive this battle. The next day, Avatar and Weehawk makes the town of Scorch, which is the city that Black Wolf, not Black Hawk, Black Wolf lives in, and they make towards the castle. Weehawk splits from the group to find Eleanor because she's kind of wandered off. She's hits the ride in this tank, so he goes to grab her, and Avatar goes to face off against Black Wolf, and he knows the odds are against
Eleanor,
him.
does Eleanor not shoot Peace, the reprogrammed robot, as well?
Oh yes, yes, I
Yeah.
forgot that part. Thank you. Yeah, she's. I think she shoots him by accident, if I'm not mistaken. What's that, Rob?
Did she put a sword through him or something?
Yeah,
Oh,
I thought she was she. I think if I remember, like, I did see it last night, so I should know this. I think she either did it put a sword through him, or I thought she
Yeah,
might
I
have
think it was a
possibly
sword.
shot him.
but
But
it was because she was taking over. Her
yeah,
mind
she was taking
clouded.
over. Yeah.
But that's one of those
So
moments that happens out of nowhere. You're like, what the hell's going on here?
you're like,
Jumps in it and
he's
runs
a good
off.
guy now, remember?
Yeah.
So yeah, so she does that, like you pointed out, and I think at that point, Weehawk manages to just kind of like snap her out of it, but she ends up catching a ride on a tank, and then
Hmm.
Weehawk goes after her. And while Weehawk's doing that, we get Avatar, who faces off against Black Wolf.
Wolf.
Yes, Black Wolf. I don't know why I keep on fucking that up. And he thinks he knows the odds are against him, but he in this last moment effort, he basically goes to Black Wolf. He's like, "Hey, let me show you a trick that Mom showed me," and kind of like out from his sleeve, he pulls a pistol and he shoots him dead. And
That's
effectively from there,
that's got to be a Raiders of the Lost Ark reference, doesn't it?
This came
it
before
has to
Raiders
be.
Start, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, it did too. Yeah.
Uh, yeah,
77.
you're
Where
right.
was Raiders?
Or maybe it's the other way around. Maybe that was George Lucas referencing
Oh,
action.
yeah. I mean,
Yeah, they did know each other. Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And it's funny because I'm sure you guys heard the story about that, how that happened in Raiders. I think they used that gun sequence because they didn't want to go through all the effort of doing this big fight choreography scene for that
Did
Raiders game.
Yeah.
Harrison Ford did it just off the top of his head, didn't he? It was a joke.
Well,
And they
did he
decided to,
not have
Oh, okay.
diarrhea and he couldn't perform the stunts that day? That's the story
Oh,
I heard.
that's the story. And I knew there was a story to that fight scene.
Yeah.
So yeah, basically at that point, Black Wolf is dead. Weehawk goes to take over the kingdom of Montagar and become the new leader. And Avatar and Eleanor kind of go off to start their own new kingdom. Um, and of course, because it's Ralph Bosky, hold on one second, I have it written down here. They have to end the film with some sexual humor. Of course, he has a scene where I'm just waiting for my tablet to restart here, guys. He goes, "Come on, Avatar, let's make it." And then Eleanor laughs and winks at him. "Oh, you're getting older and bolder," because she of course takes the make it as a reference to getting down, because it's Ralph Bosky's. You got to throw in that like little sexual innuendo there. Um, so I guess with that all said, guys, what are your overall thoughts on the film? I'm curious to hear what you guys have to think.
yeah, I mean, this one, I mean, for me, I think this is the third time I've seen it. Third time's kind of the charm for me. I just really loved it this time around. I have a very similar experience to my experience watching heavy metal, actually. I think I need to just let go of any notion of straightforward narrative and just
Mm,
glory in the visuals here. There's not a frame of this film that doesn't look pretty great. Like
yeah.
it's an incredible looking film, I think. Um, it's just got very incongruous things in it. It's got weird plot pacing. It's got kind of um tonal whiplash all over the place. Like some of the tone of the comedy is like really goofy and wacky, but then it'll go all full Lord of the Rings and that kind of thing. But I think it's a really, really fascinating film. And also I think you without getting too political, but you mentioned Trump up front. I mean, this has got a message in it which will never not be relevant, which is the power of propaganda and populism to repress people, because that's what it, I mean, he literally finds Nazi stuff buried,
Mhm.
which all
Yeah.
miraculously works, which probably wouldn't after 3,000 years. But anyway, all the tanks and machinery, but also most importantly, his biggest weapon is the film projector. And he
Yeah.
shows Triumph of the Will. That's excerpts from the Lenny Riefenstahl Triumph of the Will film that he uses. That kind of convinces all his minions to go out and fight on his side. And then later on, we've got a scene where all the elves, all the good guys, are sort of stupefied by this film and by the sight of what they're seeing, and they get their asses kicked by the bad guys. And it's very interesting, and they even have a line in it at the end where it's like Hitler died again. It's very overt in its symbolism. So it's almost like it takes a lot of the stuff that Tolkien, I think, was kind of referencing in his books, like, the dangers of fascism and the dangers of warfare and, what that does and the sort of damage it can wreak on a society. And he's
Certainly more about the First World War with Tolkien, I think, from the
yeah, definitely. But he's taking those ideas and he's just making them a lot more overt. Like, you've got actual swastikas, you've got footage of Hitler, you've got all these. He's making it really obvious what he's referencing. But I think it's very, very I don't know what the word is, poignant. Resonates.
Yeah, I mean, what's interesting is, I mean, when you think about it from just a historical perspective, World War II, and you really think about how crazy it was, not to derail, but I know we're on a timeline, but when you think about what Hitler was able to accomplish, this is a guy that was a failed artist, and he managed to convince an entire country. And now, don't get me wrong, there were plenty of people that were just doing it because their family would have been shot if they didn't join the army. But there were also a lot of people that he managed to convince that, like, hey, this is the thing to do. And that's pretty crazy when you think about it, that he was able to manipulate so many people.
Crazy, except it happens time and time and time again. I mean, this goes all the way back. I mean, it wasn't so different in ancient Rome, although I should defer to you, John, about it. But the whole Julius Caesar, it was very sort of populist.
Oh yeah. Populism, popularity was very powerful back then. The power of the people behind you was definitely one of the big ways that these Roman senators gained power.
Yeah.
And back to Trump, there's no way that this idiot got elected in our country. It's an embarrassment that he got elected, but there's no way he would have gotten elected if he wasn't able to convince some of these idiots that really genuinely think he's the guy that's going to be their savior and their hero. So it all
he's great
back.
at propaganda. Absolutely, he's a master at it.
Yeah.
It's propaganda in a form. It's not the film projector anymore, like it was in late 30s Germany. It's social media and the internet and Twitter and all the stuff that he was. And it's sort of scary, because it's actually a lot more insidious than. I mean, everyone used to go to the film theaters back in the 30s, so that was massive enough. But this is like, it's everywhere, It just is really hard to know. It's constant.
Again,
lead to it.
A quick derailment, but just, I'm a 50-year-old man and I'm embarrassed to admit this, but I will admit this. I actually get like nervous panic if I don't have my phone within like 5 feet of me. And the reason is part of it is because, like a lot of people, I've become addicted to the phone. But part of it is I don't have a landline. I just have the regular cell phone. That's my only. I don't bother to pay for 2 lines. So so it's actually, and that I'm a different generation. I'm not like the younger generation. It's kind of sad that as a 50-year-old man, I've gotten to that point where, like, if I don't have that phone, like, within reaching distance of me, then I'm like, what the fuck's going on here? You know what I mean?
I don't think that's sad. That's the world you're living in. Yeah.
I know, but it's
I don't
crazy.
think the only people immune to that are like the very old who just cope without it somehow, and the very who aren't allowed to use it, whose parents don't allow them to use it. Other than that, everyone's pretty much addicted to devices at this point.
Yep, true.
I mean, I work at an elementary school for kids that are like kindergarten through like 4th grade here in America, and these kids are like 5, 6, 7, 8 years old, and they have cell phones.
Wow.
I didn't get I had my first cell phone when I was like 25. Now, mind you, I'm 50 years old, so there's a difference. There's a generational gap, but still, like,
that's true. Yeah, you may have had it earlier if they'd been invented, I suppose.
Yeah, true. Anyway, derailing here. Joe, what do you think? Let's hear your thoughts.
I gotta admit, I didn't like it. It was the first time for me, and you said, Rob, first time you saw it. Well, you were a kid.
I was a little kid though. You don't have an excuse, do you?
I don't have an excuse. I'm not a little kid. I should have enjoyed it, but it was kind of rubbish. And I didn't. You know what? I appreciated the animation and the different styles, but I thought it was all kind of ugly.
Yeah.
And, no, God, it's beautiful.
I didn't like the style. It looked.
Oh man, I was like, I downloaded this off Internet Archive. Actually, they've got a really good copy up there.
And I got that one too.
and put it up on my TV. Man, it just looks so good. I thought. I think
I
it
mean,
looks,
yeah, it looks good, but I just don't like the characters and the way. I don't like the way they move either. There's like I've noticed this in some of the clips I've seen of Ralph Bakshi. They move too much in an unnatural ways. I don't get what they're doing.
yeah, they do. They're not, this is the thing. It's and it's not arguing. There's no right or wrong on this anyway. But I think for me, that
Yeah.
used to put me off as well because they were almost like too cartoony, like too kiddie cartoony in a
Yeah,
story that should be more like Lord of the Rings or something like that. That's what used to bug me about this. I
yeah.
just got
There's no reason that should bug me, but it did.
yeah, I've come around on the whole idea of that now where I'm cool with it. But yeah, it is some of the comedy is really weird in it.
Mhm.
Yeah, some of it I liked, especially like the stuff with the guards, mucking about,
Yeah.
things like that. And some of the voices in those little bits were pretty good, and the animation was good. Yeah, but generally, yeah, it felt like cheap animation that I used to watch as a kid. I tried to watch a He-Man cartoon a few
I
months
Yeah.
ago.
compare
So
back to He-Man cartoons. That's
very
terrible.
like He-Man, very very like He-Man. It's like that. Yeah,
The
it's no good.
power of Grayskull is strong. It's hard to resist the power of Grayskull.
I was going
No,
to say Bakshi's rolling in his grave right now, but I think he's still alive, so he's
he
probably
is
rolling.
actually still
Yeah.
alive. I think he's 86.
Yeah.
But you know what? I could have totally forgiven that if the story was good, if it was interesting, if it was trying to say something different. And yeah, it's a good message to put. But you know what? I've heard that message before, and it was yeah, kind of like Lord of the Rings for idiots. So I
No, I
didn't
mean
particularly like the
it
style.
is a very it is very there are some very simple themes, and I'm not gonna lie, I saw it recently too, and the first time I saw it, I enjoyed it, but I definitely enjoyed it more the second time. Now I'm not
Okay.
saying if you watch it 5 years from now you're gonna be like fall in love with this movie, but I can definitely respect where you're coming from. I think
The
some
only
of the
way
stuff.
is up for me.
What's that?
The only way is up for me. So I'll probably will enjoy it more if I watch it again.
Either that or 5 years from now, he's gonna like send
Yeah.
me an email, me and Rob, be like, "You
Yeah.
guys told me to give some time, and this thing is still."
I'm acting all shocked, but actually, it's totally unsurprising that anyone would not like this. It very much divides opinion because it is sort of weird, and the narrative
Yeah.
is not like I said. It's not well paced. It's not well laid out.
No.
You can only really enjoy it in a very Brechtian way. Although I do think it's genuinely beautiful. That's the one thing I would
Hmm.
disagree on. But
Yeah.
that's in the eye of the beholder, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I get it. As I said, I've got to separate the actual animation and the care and the craft that's gone into it with,
Yeah.
you know, kind of what I was watching, which I didn't like to watch
Yeah.
for some reason.
No, and I can completely respect that, and I'm somewhere in the middle. I think for the most part, I like this movie. I can definitely take into what you were saying, some of the animation and stuff like that. Um, but I think overall, I had a good time with it. I think I like the themes. Yes, the themes have been done before, but I like the themes, and I like the goofiness of the characters. Something about like Avatar, this guy that's smoking a cigar with his foot, and
Yeah,
he kind of
that was
has
quite
like
cool.
this laissez-faire, like, do we have to go stop the world from being taken over? He's like he kind of has like this kind of like reluctant hero, really reluctant hero. You could definitely see like the uh, the hippie movement, like that effect
That's
because
it.
it's
Yeah.
77, that effect on the film.
Yeah, but
But
weirdly, he voices him like and apparently this is deliberate.
Yeah.
I think he was friends with Peter Falk. He wanted it to be like Columbo or Peter Falk
oh,
anyway.
okay.
Yeah.
And that
So
makes sense because the speech delivery I could definitely see Peter Falk
Yeah, but
doing.
Bob Hope was
yeah, but
apparently
that's such a
quite famous
weird
for doing a Peter
identity.
Falk impression.
But that's such a weird
Oh,
identity
okay.
into the middle of a fantasy film. Do you know what I mean? It doesn't
Yeah.
really. Well, it works for me, but it doesn't really work.
I think back then
Ah.
kids would have known Columbo. I don't know.
I know, but they'd be like,
Uh,
"What's Columbo doing in my fairy tale?"
That's very true.
and he's smoking a cigar too. What's going on here?
Yeah, yeah.
And if it was one of his earlier works, like Fritz the Cat or Heavy Traffic, it probably would have been a peace pipe. It probably would have been smoking some pot. But because it
Probably.
was a PG movie, he's like, we'll stick with the cigar. It's much
Yeah.
healthier. It's the 70s. Everybody's smoking cigars nowadays. All right. So with that said, I guess we'll move on to our second film, which is part of our post-apocalyptic double feature. And this one is a film from 1990 called A Wind Named Amnesia. I couldn't find anything budgetary on this one. I think here in the States, at least, it didn't get a theatrical release. I'm fairly certain it just kind of went straight to VHS. This is one of those movies. I graduated high school, and my local comic book shop had manga, so I started getting into manga, like reading Crying Freeman and Ranma and One Half, and Mason Okoko and Akira, and of course that led to the next logical step, which was anime. And here in the States, you couldn't get anime without like basically sacrificing your firstborn child. It was so expensive. Like you'd pay like for 2 episodes of like Ranma One Half, you'd pay like $30. But luckily, there was a bootlegger that lived the next town over. He had a little shop set up, and surprisingly, he didn't get caught for a long time. And you can go there and you could buy for like $30. You could get like 5 or 6 bootlegs. And this is one of the ones I came across, A Wind Named Amnesia.
Really? So you watched this back in the day?
Yeah, back in the day, I've actually seen this movie quite a few times. I'm not gonna lie, I'll play my hand early. I actually really enjoy this film a lot. I feel like it's one of the animes that I feel like doesn't get talked about enough. I don't think it's perfect by any means, but I think there's a lot to like here in the film.
Yeah.
It's based off a graphic novel apparently that came out in '83. And again, this is where I'm going to start really butchering some names here. I'm going to mostly talk about the American cast, but there are some people involved that are Japanese that I can't avoid. It was written by a guy named Hideyuki Kokuchi, and the artist was Yashitaka Amaro. This was published in '83.
Japanese is easier. You just pronounce every bit. It's easy. Same.
Yeah, the running joke is that I butcher even the American films I'm talking about. So I just kind of roll with it. You know what I mean? The basic tagline is: after a mysterious gust of wind erases all human knowledge, a rehabilitated young man and an enigmatic woman travel across the ravaged America in search of others like themselves. Now, this one actually has 2 directors. We have a Kazuo Yamazaki. Now, a couple of credits that people may be familiar with. He did the television show City Hunter, which is apparently a really popular series. I hear it's rather good. He did Slayers, the movie, which came out in '95, and stuff like that. Oh, he also did one of my favorite shows by Rumiko Takayashi, Mason Okoko, who's also the co-creator of Inuyasha and Ranma One Half. He worked on like 26 episodes of that. So he's done some stuff like that. And then our co-director is a gentleman named Yoshiaki Kawaziri. Now, him, I'm actually more familiar with some of his stuff. He did stuff like Wicked City, which came out in '87. He also did Demon City. We can see a theme here with cities. Both those are fun movies,
Demon
by the way.
City. Was there an anime film made of Demon City? No?
Yeah. These are all animated films. Yeah.
Yeah, I think Demon City. I think Demon City may have been a Joe Fest film.
Yeah, I think it might be Demon City Shinjuku, or it might be just Demon City. But that came out like around the same time in '88.
Yeah. Put Shinjuku in here, and suddenly I know what that is. Yeah, I think I've seen that.
I love that stupid movie. It's one of those batshit crazy, type movies.
Yeah, I know exactly the one you're talking about. Yeah, that's great.
And then we have the one that I think everyone has seen, and if they haven't seen, they need to go ahead and see it right away. Ninja Scroll from '93. Have either of you guys seen Ninja Scroll?
Yeah, it's awesome.
I haven't seen Ninja Scroll.
Seek it out. You'll dig it. I think you'll absolutely love it.
One of the guys I noticed did Vampire Hunter D, and that was one that I remember watching back as a teenager or something.
Yeah,
that was another old school one. Yeah, they've done a couple of those movies since then. They've like 2 or 3
really good sequel, Vampire Hunter D. Oh, I can't remember
like Bloodlust maybe or something. The sequel, I think.
Which is pretty good. I like the original better though. I kind of like this old school anime quite a bit.
Yeah,
me too.
Slightly
what I grew up on.
Smoother and polished as the stuff they've been releasing in the last 20 years, but I kind of like the texture of it.
Yeah, I agree. And one of my earliest memories, the first show I remember really enjoying when I was very young was Battle of the Planets, which was the kind of
Oh
the
yeah,
American version of was it Gatchaman?
Gensha Man or something.
Gatchaman. Um,
yeah.
Yeah.
um, and yeah, just I love that the very old school anime style. Yeah.
Yeah, no, definitely. I definitely have a love for the older stuff myself too. You're right. It definitely there's definitely a different feel for it nowadays. I feel like they're kind of taking shortcuts. Where they're combining like hand drawn animation, but then they're also using computer animation, and they think
Mhm.
like they're getting one over on people. And you can definitely see it if you watch any of the modern anime for sure.
Yeah.
Um, all right, so
But
I'm not going to go too much
it's funny
further on these guys'
because
careers.
you could see the sort of you could see you could almost see the specks on the transparent plastic, you know, and on the cells. You
Yeah.
can see it in the
Yeah,
frame. This is
Hmm.
a plastic thing that's been laid over and photographed. That's what
Yeah.
I love. Love the
Yeah. Yeah.
animation.
Nice to
no,
see. Yeah,
absolutely.
that's what I say about. I think animation. We just love to see the and of just filmmaking in general. You like to see the nuts and bolts of it all. The
Yeah.
finger. I
Oh
can't
yeah,
remember who
definitely.
we're talking to had a phrase for that. But I remember enjoying that.
Yeah, no. He definitely see a huge difference. And again, I've always loved the hand drawn stuff, just in
Mm.
general. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'll watch like the modern stuff that's come out nowadays, and some of it's really, really good. But at my heart, give me the hand drawn stuff any day of the week for sure. When we get to our screenplay, we have a guy named Kazuo Yamazaki. Um, he did a film called Blood the Last Vampire, which is also another animated. And again, he worked on the film Slayers in '95. Um, we also have another screenwriter, Yoshiri Kawazari, who worked on Gotcha Man, the original in '72.
Right.
He also worked at Neo Tokyo, which came out in '87. Talking about Demon City, he also worked on Demon City. Um, here's one for you. You guys, I don't know if you guys ever played Dungeons and Dragons back in the day. I was a big
Oh,
Dungeons and Dragons nerd. He worked on an anime series that's awesome called Record of the Lotus War. If you ever get a chance, seek out Record of the Lotus War. It was inspired by Dungeons and Dragons,
all
and
right.
yeah, it's really really good. Um, and then we have finally one more screenwriter. We have a gentleman named Kenji Hirata, and apparently this film was his only credit. Wind Named Amnesia.
Hmm.
Um, moving on to music, we have a gentleman Hidenobu Takamoto, who worked on, again, he only has one credit to his name, A Wind Named Amnesia. And then we have one more composer, Kazuhiko Toyama. Uh, he did Ogre Slayer in '95, an anime series, Vampire Wars in 1990, and Goku Midnight Eye, which is apparently an animated television series.
Hmm.
Um,
Saying that,
with
that's it.
cinema, you seen it? Yeah, it's worth checking out. Nice, very
Absolutely.
cool. We have with our cinematography, we have Kenichi Ishikawa. Excuse me. Uh, again, he worked on Record of the Lotus War. He did Devil Hunter Yohoko, Neo Tokyo, Wicked City, and Barefoot Gen. Um, and then that brings us to our animation department. We had 76 people work on this film. And again, I'm not going to go into all 76 people because we'll be here forever. Which brings us to our cast next. With our cast, and again, I'm going to be talking mainly about the English actors here. We have our main character, Wataru, which apparently in Japan means traveler. That's the rough translation. And Wataru is our main character, and he's played by a guy named Adam Henderson. Adam Henderson has worked on a bunch of animated stuff like Mermaid Forest in '94, which is a TV show. He worked on Bubblegum Crash, another TV show, which came out in '95. And he worked on the Mobile Suit Gundam TV show in '04. So he has a nice set of credits, mostly animated stuff, anime in particular. Um, Playing the role of Sophia. Now, she's like this mysterious character initially and that finds our main character Wataru, and her name is Denica Fairman, and apparently this is her only credit, so she didn't have a lot.
Hmm.
Next up, we have Johnny. Johnny is played by, hold on one second, guys. Bear with me. A guy named Ben Fairman. Okay, Ben Fairman's been on the heroic legend of Arasan and Tokyo Babylon. So those are a couple titles that he's worked on. We have Lisa. Lisa is played by a lady named Barbara Barnes. Barbara Barnes has worked on stuff like Angel Cop, which is a TV show from '95. She did Bubblegum Crash, which came out in '95, and a TV movie called Project AKO, which came out in '92.
Oh, I think
So
I've
those are
seen
a
that
few
one.
titles. Project AKO
Yeah, it's not the
or
Jackie Chan.
Bubblegum?
No, it's I think it's an
Uh,
animated. Is that right?
yeah, this is an animated film.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. You can actually, I think I saw it floating around on Tubi actually. I haven't
Yeah.
seen that one, but it looks like a lot of fun. Yeah.
Mhm.
And then we're almost done with our credits here. We have Mr. Simpson. Mr. Simpson is played by Peter Marinker. He's been in stuff like the video game Killzone Liberation in '06, Blue Sonnet, a TV show which came out in '97, and then another TV show which came out in '03 called Gal Force, Earth Chapter.
Mhm.
Um, Finally, we have Sue. Sue, no, we have two more characters. I'm sorry. Sue is played by Yuko Mita. She's been in stuff like Dominion Tank Police, which came out in '88. Believe it or not, Police Academy, the animated series. I didn't know they made an animated Police Academy series. And then Rama and One Half in '89.
She doesn't have
Um,
lines, does she? So I don't. That's why I don't think they redubbed her, did they?
yeah,
No,
no, yeah, the character, because of the idea of this wind that sweeps through this world, it pretty much kind of reverts people back to like almost like cavemen basically. So
Hmm.
because of that, she doesn't really communicate, which makes sense why they didn't have an English actor for her. Two more actors, I promise. We got Little John, uh, who we find out later on is basically her father. He's this
Mhm.
overprotected, big, bulking bear of a character. Um, and I forgot to write his name down, so I guess it's not that important. Oops. He was in the video game Ninja Gaiden 2, which came out in '08. Kung Fu Panda, he did a voice for in '08. And he did a movie called Redline, which came out in 2010, another animated movie.
Oh, Red Line. I've seen Red Line's great.
Yeah, that's a really good one.
Yeah.
That's a good example of a modern animated film where I really
Yeah.
enjoyed it. A lot of
Yeah.
fun.
It's great fun. That. Yeah.
Finally, we have the Guardian, or otherwise known as the Killer Mech.
Mm.
And this is played by Bob Sessions. Now, Bob Sessions has been in a bunch of different stuff. He was in Wicked City in '93. He was in the Crying Freeman animated series that came out in
Oh yeah.
'94.
I remember that as
He
well. That was a good show.
An interesting piece of trivia. We were just talking about Feladay earlier. He was in
Mm.
that, the '94 version of that. And he was also in Pat Labor 2, which came out in '96.
Nice.
So he's another one that's done a lot of voiceover work here. Okay. All right. So let me just get into the story here. And again, chime in whenever you guys want. Um, in the year 1999, the world has been reduced to an apocalyptic wasteland due to an inexplicable gust of wind that wiped even the most basic memories, such as speech and civility. We're introduced to a character named Wateroo, um, and we hear kind of like his backstory. And we've realized that Wateroo wasn't affected by this wind, or he was affected by the wind, excuse me, but he wanders into this town and he meets this young guy who's in a wheelchair named Johnny. We find out Johnny was in this government experiment where they kind of basically, the long and short of it is they implanted like a hard drive inside of his brain.
Yeah.
Um, and because of that, he wasn't affected by this wind that basically wiped the memories and pretty much reverted everyone to cavemen.
Mm.
So because of that, he was able to keep all his memories. But he was also badly hurt, which is why he's in a wheelchair. Um, he befriends Wateroo and basically tries to re-educate him.
Mhm.
He hooks him up to a machine, and the machine basically gives him the education of a 5-year-old. and then he continues to educate him on his own. Unfortunately, just as we feel like these two are connecting and they're bonding, and we feel like he's becoming like a full-fledged adult in the sense of his education and he's learning the ways of survival and stuff, Johnny dies. But before Johnny dies, he tells him, hey, listen, your path in this world is to set out in the world and explore the world and try to kind of bring society back from the brink of civilization. You need to try to lead society again, kind of re-educate people and see if we can kind of restart society. It's like basically the premise.
No pressure.
What's that?
No pressure.
No pressure at all. I just want you to, make up
one thing I want you to do after I die. Just rebuild humanity, please. You don't mind.
Yeah.
Here's a couple of guns. Oh, by the way, here's a Jeep, and I think I have a couple of tanks of gas for you. You'll be fine.
Take this dolly dive in park. By the way, Johnny, he knows a lot because he knows how to drive. He knows how to play leads as musical instruments. He knows.
Yeah. He knows how. He's got a tin opener.
He knows how to. Yeah, exactly. Those damn cans, man, they will just not open without a can opener. Unless you bust it against like the side of a big rock or something, then we're really going caveman style. But other than that, you're fucked.
He knows which mushrooms to eat when you go foraging. He knows which mushrooms to eat when you go foraging.
Yeah, for a guy in a wheelchair, he's not too bad. He's ahead of the game. He really is.
What killed him, by the way? Did he die from having a chip in his brain? Is that what ironically killed him?
Damn government always fucking with us now. I want to say that yes, the government in their attempt to make him a better, smarter, or whatever, ended up being a messed up.
Yeah,
that's what's implied, but not before he's able to give our friend here the boost he needs to go, like you said, no pressure at all, but just restart the planet. So from there, we see Waterloo. And he's in the city, and I believe he's on the West Coast. I want to say he's like somewhere by LA or in that area.
Well, he starts off in San Francisco, and then he goes down to LA. So that first scene when he meets Sophia and he shoots the Guardian, the mecha robot, that's San Francisco, I believe.
Oh, it is. Okay, so you have a better number.
That's a really so that because we see this mecha is attacking him, and there's like a skeleton driving it, and you're going, what is going on? Why is there a skeleton?
Really cool. And that's right at the start. So it's a really good start to this film. Yeah.
I started with the even though that was the first scene, I wanted to describe this scene first only because I feel like it gives you a little more frame of reference.
So
that's why I started with that scene. But technically the next scene, which is what you're talking about, is the first scene. We're introduced to Sophia, and again, she basically saves him. And she's like this tall lady. She's human, but there's something about her that looks a little bit off. I think it's something with the eyes. She just looks right off the get-go. I feel like there's something about her that's different. She saves water.
She looks a bit like Laura Dern.
Yeah, she does. Yeah. She also doesn't have any shoes.
Not a bad
thing. I know. What the hell, man? Damn post-apocalyptic world, and you can't even pick up a pair of shoes? What the hell's going on here?
Look it up. Laura Dern. Brilliant.
So she saves Waterloo's life, and they have a conversation. Waterloo basically tells her he's kind of surprised that she can even talk. He thanks her for saving her life, and then he tells her that his mission is to kind of travel the world, and basically tells her a little bit about Johnny briefly. And she says,
it's quite funny, this bit is that Waterloo gives her his whole story and then says, so what about you? How can you talk? She went, I don't want to talk about that. All right then.
Typical woman. I just unload my soul on you and you're playing hard to get here.
Yeah, come on. Yeah, you need to give a little bit back.
Can I read out very quickly? There's a very short review by a friend of mine on Letterboxd named Mushy Minion. He said, the trials of an anime boy who just wants to fill out his Japanese role-playing game party, and the only member who sticks around for more than a minute is a condescending chick who doesn't help out at all.
No, that's not true. She does belittle him quite a lot all the way through.
Hey, listen, she saves in the beginning, and at the end, she does save him in the end, but. but in between there, she does kind of condescend to him a little bit, and she likes to keep up that mysterious air a little bit too long here.
Oh,
Yeah, a bit too much. Yeah.
So basically, she's like, "Hey, I have to go to New York eventually. Mind if I tag along?" So they tag along, and
Is that are they heading for New York? I think I missed this bit.
so she ultimately has to be in New York, but again, she's playing hard to
Right.
get in the beginning. She doesn't tell him the backstory. We get the backstory a little bit further along.
Yeah, true,
And
true.
but he's just thrilled to have, I think, an attractive female, but B, someone that can actually have a conversation with him other than Johnny, who's now dead. So I think
Yeah.
he's in his naivete. I don't think he questions it probably as much as he should.
Yeah,
He's just like,
you don't look a gift Laura Dern in the mouth.
exactly. When it comes to Laura Dern lookalikes, you gotta just roll with the punches. Just gotta go with it. So hold on. So yeah, they agree to travel the world together and go on all these adventures essentially.
Yeah. It's like it's a road movie, this, and it's a nice post-apocalyptic road movie, which is
No,
one of
you
my.
don't get too many of those, road movie and
I
a
don't know. Yeah, well,
Well, I
Walking
mean,
Dead's got aspects of that. You've got The Stand as well, the Stephen King one.
all right, you're right.
You've
You're
got
right. You
The
do have
Road.
some.
The Road is literally
Yeah,
a post-apocalyptic road movie.
Yeah.
true.
That's
True. You're right. You do bring up some good points here.
This is quite a bleak tone, this one, but yeah, it's not as bleak as the
Yeah.
last.
No, The Road's
Yes.
way bleaker.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, the roads. Yeah, that's definitely bleak. That's a bleak film for sure. So they travel along the way. The next town, this is where they enter Los Angeles, and this is
Yeah.
where we meet two new characters. We meet Sue's like this teenage daughter or teenage girl, excuse me. She's scantily clad, of course, because it's anime.
Yep.
And we see this big bear of a man that seems to be overprotective, and they're getting chased by basically an angry mob. They manage to save these characters, and they kind of enter the city a little bit further to kind of escape the angry mob. And at first, we're introduced to four lights the characters. We start to see there's more going on with our Sophia character because she goes up to the one guy, the big angry guy, and she's like, "Let me do something." And she basically touches him, and she's able to kind of communicate basically with him. And that's when she learns that little John is the father, that's his daughter, and he's just being overprotective. Because basically, they're like I said, they're back to like caveman state. Like they don't really have too many of. They're not able to really put together too many thoughts and really do anything like a modern man, but they still know basic instincts.
Yeah. Now,
I think interesting concept this, I think, because there's the amnesia is such an overused trope in movies and TV shows and everything. And I've always wondered, whenever someone gets amnesia, I've always thought, well, how does he know how to drive? How does he know how to talk still? How does he know certain things about himself if he's lost all his memories? Whereas this plays it out to true amnesia, actually forgetting everything makes you question, okay, what's instinct?
Yeah.
What's learned, and anything that's learned is gone. And it's a good idea. It's interesting.
I love the concept in this film. I was thinking about what do you know what to eat? Is it just how much of instinct is that?
Yeah.
And even speech, because like to your point, Rob, every movie I've seen with amnesia, they still know how to talk.
Yeah.
I've never seen a movie that involved amnesia where they still don't know how to have a conversation. They can't remember everything about the past.
Born with language, you learn language, so you should forget language if you've got true amnesia.
Yeah.
So
I don't think Sophia figures out that it's a father and daughter. I think we pick up on that because there's a lovely little bit where he has a picture in his pocket that he keeps on looking, and it's him and Sue before the wind, and it's obviously father and daughter, and he doesn't know what that means. That's what makes clear. But that's a really nice poignant bit that he's still got an instinct to protect her, where we know already that doesn't usually happen. Parents forget their, push them away and abandon them.
Yeah, all she's able to get from touching him is I think she's able to kind of get like a vibe, like there's some sort of like not direct communication, but kind of like he's protecting her basically, and you kind of get that like that's all it is. But I think Sophie is kind of able to communicate basically that they mean them no harm. So to your point, that we'll get the picture. I'm going to touch on that. The next day, they go to the beach because they figure it'd be a nice distraction, and they manage to get them on their Jeep. This is where it's a little bit of a stretch, but we go with it because why not? And
Yeah.
we get to the beach, and of course we have this moment where again, it's not said outwardly, but you see the fatherly instincts because Sue basically strips off almost all of her clothes, and the father gets real. We know to be the father later on gets real angry. Little
I think the
John.
father has a very suitable response to that. He goes,
Yeah, of course. Yeah. And of course, I mean, listen, we'd all do that if we're fathers and our daughter.
What we're thinking is just saying what we're thinking.
Exactly. But then you see the daughter behave, even though it's not at this point, we're not saying it's her daughter. The daughter, she behaves like a daughter. She kind of grabs the father, touches him, and she smiles, and she kind of like reassures him. They have like this frolicking day at the beach, and they have a good time. I guess at some point they Sophia informs Wateroo. They find
Yes.
out basically the reason they're on the run is because this group of people, this village of people, what they do is they sacrifice a virgin once a month to this like god, as they like to call it. It basically is some sort of construction machinery that I've never seen before, but it's like this
Yeah.
high tech construction machinery, and that's what they do once a month. And when Wateroo hears that, his response is like, "Well, that's it. They're coming with us." Um, he goes to gather some food supplies, and he ends up coming back with some bottles of wine. And when he comes back, he's in shock because Little John and Sue are no longer there. Sophia basically says, "Hey, they left," and she explains the reasoning she thinks they left. Basically, that even though they're back to caveman instincts, they know the idea that if she doesn't go back and make the sacrifice, they're just going to pick another girl. So I think that's
It's a bit
interesting.
of a jump. It's interesting. Yeah, but if it's like every month, I mean, get out.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, you're
Yeah.
not helping really
I mean,
anyone.
yeah.
And I don't think Sophia did much to try to stop them.
She did nothing.
No,
She
no.
Useless. Well, she's
useless.
worthless. We'll get to that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think this hints towards her ultimate secret, if you will. But yeah, she just kind of like, yeah, they went back to go get sacrificed. And of course, Wateroo is like, well, we have to save them. And then we have this big scene. Basically, he manages to go back. He manages to destroy the robot, but unfortunately, in the process of destroying the robot, uh, it still manages to kill, in the aftermath, manages to kill Sue. So we still have kind of like
there's a guy up in the cab of the crane basically killing these people, and he gets shot by Wateroo, who's apparently an excellent shot. No,
He's a very good
he
shot.
doesn't fuck around. Johnny taught him well. So
What do you
unfortunately,
so he taught him. Yeah, you're right.
yeah. So unfortunately, in the aftermath of this, tragedy still ensues. Again, we do have to take a couple of gaps in logic here. This is where Wateroo and Sophia pull Little John to the side, and they show him how to use a pistol. A little bit of a leap in logic, but they go through the process of showing how to load a pistol and how to shoot it somewhat.
Yeah.
And he effectively, from what we can infer, is that he kind of becomes the leader of this group.
Because as well as the photograph in his pocket, he's got a sheriff's badge.
Yeah.
The sheriff of
Yes,
LAPD, which I'm not sure is how it works in America.
It was just a toy.
Yeah. Yeah, he's something he found at the dollar store, But no. So he's like, I can be the sheriff, anyone can be the sheriff. So from there, they go on their way. Then we get this. I'm gonna just call him the T2000, basically this freaking Terminator death machine mech bot that just doesn't die.
Yeah.
Because effectively, this thing chases after them again, and they manage to escape it, but in the process, I guess they kind of go off, careening off this cliff, and Wateroo ends up getting injured.
Yes.
We wake up, and he's in this hospital, and of course, he's in shock. And he's encountered by a nurse, and the nurse I forget what she introduces herself, but ultimately we find out her name is Lisa. There's another gentleman that's in the hospital as well. We believe his name is Mr. Simpson.
Yeah. Now, I was going to ask a question about this because first off, he's getting treated by a doctor, and then an elderly patient comes in. Are they the same person then? Is the
Yeah.
doctor Mr. Simpson?
There's only sorry, we're jumping ahead. I think John's going to explain it. There's
Yeah.
only 2 people in this city.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So effectively, this is another weird case like with Johnny with the downloaded hard drive. So to cut to the chase, because I know we are tight on time, I apologize. Basically, we find out that in this city, this city is a city based completely on technology and computers run the entire city. Apparently, when the wind blew through, effectively what happened was, I guess a bunch of people managed to try to escape, but these two were left behind. And I guess somehow the barrier of the city and the technology of the city somehow managed to kind of save them. And when I say kind of save them, basically what the computer did was it basically forced all the memories, I guess, of the people that died and the people that fled the city inside these two people, Lisa and Mr. Simpson.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
don't
that's
know
right.
how those two survived, but basically what happened was everyone went nuts because they all lost their memories and were attacking
Okay.
stuff. The computer took that to mean they were attackers and killed them all. So anyone who
Yeah.
didn't got killed by the
Okay.
city. And then for some reason, these two were still alive. And the computer sort of rebuilt its damage and realized in order to function, it needs a population in the city. This is the bit I liked about this part of the story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Had to have people performing certain social roles, otherwise it didn't have any purpose to exist.
Mm.
All it had was these two people, so it uploaded into their mind certain roles that it switched them through. They would successively play different roles in the city, and that's what they were doing.
Yeah.
Okay. See, you nailed it a lot better than I did. I had the general gist, but I didn't quite nail it quite.
Yeah, so I was like, why this? And then it sort of, I was like, okay, yeah, no, that kind of makes sense. I think this whole story, I mean, I've been checking out the original writer of the story, and I've seen a couple of things that he's written already, but
Okay.
I want to check more out because I thought this was a really cool,
Yeah.
if you like, in terms of story, I thought it was really cool.
Yeah, I loved it.
Yeah.
I loved it. I would love to. I would watch a whole series of this. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Me
Oh,
too.
absolutely. So to kind of get a little bit further along, basically the computer wants to get Wateroo and Sophia to basically be one of the people that basically plays along with the charade.
Yeah, the computer's evil. Turns out. There you go.
Yeah, go figure. Evil computer.
There you go.
Sophia and Wateroo have no interest in doing this. They basically tell Lisa that they're leaving, and if she wants to come, she can come. At first, she agrees to it, but then when they get to the barrier of the city, she starts having all of her original memories of who she is, her real true self is, and she realizes the older gentleman that's also in the city with her is actually her father, and because it's her father, she can't leave him behind. Now they don't explain why she doesn't just bring Dad with her, but that's a whole nother
Waterloo is really only interested in bringing her, kind of like he was only really interested in bringing Sue before.
No, they asked the old dude, and he sat there shaking his head like.
No, they didn't ask him. They just looked over at him and he shook his head.
Are you trying to say Water is a pussy hound? Is that what you're trying to say?
Yeah, very much afterthought.
He's definitely a pussy.
He's Lisa Simpson.
Lisa Simpson.
What's that?
It means she's she's Lisa Simpson.
Wow.
Yeah, and all we need is Bart and the rest of Homer and the whole crew, and we'd have we'd be good to go.
I was going to say, Thea just before this has made a bet with Waterloo. Then I bet you'll get no one to come with you.
You're right. Thank you for pointing that out, because even though I have that written down, I forgot to mention that. Yes, and again, it leads more to the mystery of like why is she making bets about the fate of society? How cynical is this fucking Sophia that she's making bets about the fate of society?
So we're going to mention the twist with Sophia. Just I know we're a bit conscious of time. Are we going to mention what?
Yes. Yeah. Yes, I'm so sorry about that. Yes. So the next thing is, yes, she she reveals shortly thereafter that she is an alien. Her race of people basically did this Wind of Amnesia because they didn't want to like outright destroy the people and destroy the planet, but basically she needs to. They did that in order to kind of reset the planet, reset humanity, and
They
give
felt
humanity a second
threatened.
chance.
Yeah, they felt threatened by humanity because humanity was expanding too quickly and they're too aggressive in their politics and they see how humans treat each other and they were worried. So they didn't want to destroy them. Instead, they just
No.
turn them
Just
on
hit the reset
Yeah.
button.
so they
Yeah.
could.
So,
And then
so
get this, the thing goes, gives him a little cheeky grin and goes, "You probably hate me now." It's like, I know, no harm done. Just destroyed the world.
Yeah.
yeah, he just fucked up my entire planet and took away everything from me. Okay, so to streamline
If we
things,
have sex, will you forgive me if we have sex? That's basically what she says.
I
well, I
think
mean,
about it.
everybody does get forgiven usually after that, you know. So to streamline, because I know we're down to the wire here. Basically, there's a chase that takes place. It goes from Washington to New York City. Basically, Waterloo drops Sophia off. The mech, is like I said, chasing them from Washington to New York. Basically, he dukes it out with the mech bot. He's about to die, unfortunately, but Sophia jumps off this building and saves him. From this point on, then of course they decide they can learn something new together, and this is where they have sex. And she basically says that, "Hey, I'm going to go back to my peoples, and I'm going to try to convince them that, like, hey, maybe we should restore the memory. Maybe we shouldn't have
Now,
hit the
does she say
reset
that? She
button."
just says, "Well, it's not up to me. We'll go and we'll talk about it. I'm not making any promises."
I'll see, I'll see what I can do, but I did get you laid, and we had some good times.
Yeah.
No, I'm
I
being
was
sarcastic.
Yeah, the
Yeah, go
version I
ahead.
was watching this had subtitles as well as the dubbing. And they were
Okay.
both quite different, so it was a bit confusing, and there was definitely little bits where it was very different in the what was being said and the kind of the themes going on from that, which was interesting.
Yeah, I would have liked to have seen the subtitle dub because this is the early days. I don't think the voices are horrible, but I feel like
Not great.
it's not like they're not like Hayao Miyazaki where he can hire Joseph Gordon-Levitt or Scarlett
Yeah.
Johansson or whoever. They're not perfect, but I think the subtitle version might have been a more interesting version. Now I know you have to leave very soon, Rob. So why don't I get your closing thoughts on what you think, and then
Yeah.
we'll wrap this baby up.
Okay. So yeah, I just to your point, these old school animes, particularly the obscure ones that were probably given English dubs on pretty low budget. I don't know who they got to do them, but they probably had some
Yeah.
agency for them for a low.
Yeah.
You just take it comes with the territory that the voicing is a bit awkward. I almost kind of like it now. It's sort of reassuring. It's like, yeah, I'm watching where they've just
Probably
found.
all the same guys. Yeah.
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 Yeah, no, I absolutely loved this, mainly because well, I love the look of it. I mean, some of the art in it was this is not as it's probably not high on the scale of some of the old school anime. Like if you compare it to something like Ninja Scroll or something like that, it's not as well crafted, but it's still quite beautiful in its
Yeah.
own. And the images, there's a lot of artistry in the conception of some of the images. Like there's a bit where he's talking about being back with Johnny, and they're talking about this motif of the bluebirds all the time, and it looks a lot like a Japanese print. So it's the proper old school anime referencing stuff like Hokusai art and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's really nice. But as a sci-fi story, I think it's just great. It's one of the coolest post-apocalyptic concepts I've come across, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Post-apocalyptic sci-fi and horror is such a massive genre, isn't it? Like there's so much of it. About
Yeah.
90% is about zombies now.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, absolutely.
And it's very derivative, which is not. I don't care. I'll watch that stuff till the cows come home. I don't care how derivative it is. But it's nice when you come across something really original. And this
Yeah.
is well thought out and had some really cool ideas in it, like Johnny being able to talk because he had a computerized brain to a certain extent. So this idea of, which is a big thing in Japan, right? The idea of technology being somehow the future or the savior of society and that kind of thing. And they sort
Yes.
of the idea of the robots and all that sort of stuff. So that's quite a nice deal on that. Yeah, and it's just I really love the sort of episodic nature. Like you say, it's a proper road movie. I love that sort of format where they're having all these different adventures, but then this mech still coming after them. So you got the constant.
Yeah, I love that mech because it wasn't like the massive villain of the piece. It was just this robot that was programmed to go and get him and just didn't stop.
Yeah, it reminded
It's
me a lot.
Johnny Five got bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just I the only thing I was thinking is why is there only one? Like there should be tons of these things
Yeah.
stalking. And it reminded me of that Black Mirror episode Metalhead. Have you seen that one with
Oh
the
yeah, that's right.
Oh,
Yeah,
robot things that have just
robot dog. Is that
yeah,
right? Yeah.
yeah. But yeah, I thought this was really, really cool. I loved it. I mean, I hated Sophia, but that was all part of the fun.
yeah. Especially when you get that final gut punch. Every time you want to like the girl, and you're like, okay, she's being a little bit aloof, but they're going to go somewhere with it, and then you finally get that final gut punch, and you're like, really? You're the
I
one that
already
did all that?
disliked her, but when she said that, I'm like, right, okay. And she killed the entire human race. Great. Okay.
I see how it is. Yeah, no, for sure. And one of the things I did like is the fact that the robot kept on rebuilding itself. I'll just
Yeah.
note on that.
Yes.
I thought that was
Yeah.
really cool.
Yeah.
Real quick, Joe, let me get your closing thoughts.
Yeah,
And
I really enjoyed this one. I thought this was a cracker, and like Rob, really good sci-fi concept, nicely handled, and some crazy stuff as well, mostly to do with Sophia and the reactions to it. But really well handled. Yeah, I
yeah,
would have seen a lot more in this universe. I think there's a lot of mileage in the concept, and to be honest, a bit more interesting than the normal zombie ones, which is a bit played out, it seems, at the moment. But yeah, this is it. The people around you are humans, but they're also monsters. But they could be either. It's yeah, fascinating stuff.
very, very cool. Well, gentlemen, I loved it. I'm going to keep my response very simple because I know everybody's on timeline. Pretty much, I'm going to echo a lot of the same things you guys said. The story, I like the story a lot. I like the human connections with our characters. Even
Yeah.
Sophia, when she's being annoying and being aloof, I still like it. And like you guys said, it's not your typical story.
Mhm.
They could have taken a lot of jumps and leaps that would have made your typical story. Even the simple amnesia thing, like they chose to avoid not having speech and having people grunt and try to figure things out, but they didn't go that route. They made a lot of interesting choices, which is
Mhm.
why I think this film really kind of sets itself apart from a lot of its contemporary peers.
Yeah.
And believe it or not, there is the graphic novel. I don't know how much a difference there is between that and this, but I'm definitely going to be checking out the graphic novel. So thank you guys again for both coming on. This was absolutely wonderful. As usual, it's always a pleasure having you guys. And definitely check out Caliber 9 from Outer Space. Every week, they put out a new episode where they give us 2 features you can watch. So check those guys out.
Oh yeah.
I'm going to let everyone go.
Can I give you a quick plug? So just to say that one's coming
Yeah,
out
of
this
course.
going up today, isn't it, John?
Yeah,
On today,
this
yeah.
is
So this
coming out today.
episode coming up this week on Friday, we'll post our episode about Demolition Man. So we're covering Demolition Man, The Iceman Cometh, which is a Hong Kong action film
Oh, that's
starring
awesome.
Yuen Wah. Yeah, and we've got Sam Deegan on with us talking about those two. So look out for that one. And the one that's posted at the moment that we put up last week was our double feature of Fortress and Fortress. Two films called Fortress. One, the
Mm.
And the
1985
one,
Australian film about a teacher and kids in a sort of country school who get kidnapped, and the other one, the underground futuristic prison film starring Christopher Lambert.
Christopher
Lambert. I've actually seen the second one. I have to seek out that first one though.
Yeah, you should check that
That's
out.
worth watching. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's definitely a good pairing. Yeah, so definitely check out Caliber 9 from Outer Space. Obviously, The Gentleman's Guide to Midnight Cinema with Sam and Will. Every week they put out some great stuff. Watch Skip Plus with Jose and Mike the Wildebeest. And Not a Bomb with Troy and Brad. So check all those podcasts out, guys. If you like what you saw today, drop a comment down below, hit like, subscribe. And I do have some new content coming out next week. I'm just trying to figure out exactly which content that's going to be. and see if I can get some more people to come on board. So look forward to that next week as well. Thank you guys again. You guys are awesome. It was wonderful having this conversation, and I'm glad you guys were able to check out the films.
Yeah.
Take care, guys.